we are going live, man. It's classic natural today.
Hayi King.
Yeah. Ungithola ngisathi ngenza itiye. Ominje umakhaza.
Kumakazi
Ngalapha phambili.
eh
Kama njani ngalapha?
hayi isami yangena impela ngoba since I came back on Monday, we've never been below 9. It's been 9, 10. I mean, that was that's very warm. I mean, so yeah, it's getting there.
In abantu on that side.
Yeah.
Thina siyafa ngapha.
Eh,
But kudala singasakhulumi ne.
yeah, it's been a
A
time.
very long time.
Yeah.
In terms of debating these issues live, at least to share our views on hot topics.
Yeah, kubalulekile,
Yeah.
kubalulekile.
And the most recent one being the shutdown. Others they call it the so-called shutdown. So I don't know what do label that action on Monday. I
Yeah.
don't think it was a so-called shutdown, but I don't know what is your take.
No, it was a
Shutdown.
it was a shutdown, man. It was a shutdown. I think people were on the street. It was not business as usual. By people on the street, I mean protesters were on the street making their voices heard. We know, Guti, even personally, you do have your brother, your friend, or your sister, or anyone who was affected, who couldn't go to work, or who got to work late, or who had to make some arrangements. But you also know people who went to work and it was closed. If you drove around some malls, it was ghost towns, in many. So it was a successful shutdown.
And on my side, I didn't go out early in the morning.
Sure.
Usually, I leave my place around 6:30. Ne? So because my kids they were not going to school or stuff like that, so I left a little bit later, like around 7.
Sure.
And the way the traffic is so jam-packed in my place, even if you leave at 7, you can never get in time. In town on time. Usually from here to town, it's about 25 minutes. But if you live around 6:30, it's a bit longer. And then if you live around 7 or so, it's better, but it still take about like an hour. So that was not the case on Monday. I took like about 20 minutes from here to town. So which give me an indication that the shutdown actually was in place. But before we get there, I just want to share my view on this whole shutdown thing, right?
Yeah.
Because there's this misconception. I don't know if I can call it misconception or misunderstanding of reality. Ne? South Africa has problems, right?
Yeah.
And the problems that we have, they threaten the social fiber. You can talk about load shedding, the increasing rate of criminal activity, and we are almost heading to what Mexico, Colombia, and the like are like today. So if this is not kept, we are going that route. But here's the problem. South Africa is so divided as a society to a point that even things that's supposed to unite us, they don't, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Everyone is affected by load shedding. But you find that, but there are people who defend it, yet they're affected by it.
Yeah.
But another problem is for any society to effect change, there has to be some form of uprising, right?
Yes.
And
true.
that uprising can be led or purely unled. So in this case, I think EFF took the responsibility of leading the march. And that was the problem from the perspective of other political parties, because they wanted to see this as an EFF march. Maybe it was, I don't know. But a revolution has to be led. If it's unled, it's become problematic even for the state itself. So,
Yeah.
but I was so surprised how the state reacted to the call for a shutdown. But besides that, I want to understand from your side. I don't know exactly what were the objectives of the national shutdown. So, in
Yeah.
your view, what were the objectives? I mean, objectives.
Yeah, I think it's a good question because it helps us to answer equation 18. Was it successful or not? Because then how we can measure it, right? If this was the plan, I mean, the idea was not to just make people not to go to work or to make
Yes.
a business to close for just to prove that they can do that. That was not the idea.
I don't
According
think
to,
so.
yeah, so according to the organizers of the shutdown, they are saying the objective was to send the message across to say we,
Yeah.
the people, we want Ramaphosa to I mean, we want Ramaphosa to resign because he has failed. We want end to load shedding. I think those were the main two points that they say. This is what we want to communicate, and I think it did. I mean, the nation was talking about shutdown, not about shutdown as an activity, but they were talking about the issues that they were also talking about the issues that the shutdown meant to put across. So people
Yeah.
now were made aware, Uguti, we have a problem of load shedding. Those issues were you know, revived
Yeah.
to say, okay, this
I mean,
is an issue. And I say, I
yeah.
think they were successful in doing that. People came out in their numbers, and the message
Yeah.
was indeed communicated loud and clear.
Yeah. And you know the reason why I ask you that question specifically, né?
Yes.
And I'm glad that you also realize that actually the outcome depend on what I mean the measurement of whether the outcome was achieved or not depends on the objectives because it depends on how do we understand the objectives of the shutdown in the first place. And that's where the difference is, right?
Yeah.
You find that the opponents or the people who oppose the national shutdown, or I can say EFF or the leader of the EFF, right?
Yes.
They had their own objectives that they
Yes.
thought the shutdown will achieve, and then when those objectives the ones that they set for themselves, I think
Yeah.
so, and
Yeah.
then
Yes.
if that was not the case, then they
Yeah.
say the shutdown was a flop. But now,
Exactly.
like the issue is that the objective that they use to measure the success of or the failure of the national shutdown, I don't think it's the same objectives that the organizers of the national shutdown had in mind.
You,
Forget about what they've been saying all along, saying the shutdown it would be worse than the what do you call it, the July unrest.
Yeah.
I think they were just creating a hype, right?
Yes.
But I think the real objective of the national shutdown was such that when the poo-poo hits the fan, right? Say, for example, the national grid totally collapse, right? I'm just making an example. Let's say next year or the other, because we're heading there anyway. If it's collapsed, let's say a year later, right? Then history will absolve those who took a stand, including the shutdown. That you see, guys, we tried, right?
Yes.
We're not sitting on our laurels. I think, for me, besides campaigning for the next year election, I think another objective was that one, so that the history will absolve the EFF on this aspect of the shutdown and including the administration as a whole.
Yes.
The reason why I'm saying that, Same like remember what happened in previous years, the so-called Zuma years. There were motions of no confidence, like nobody's business, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then a sound mind will ask, how do you expect the motions to succeed? The very motions which need the majority, and
Yeah.
you have the fraction of what is needed. You see, I
Yeah.
think that a personal thing like that, because there were many people who thought like that. I think that they have this mind, they have the mind of an end.
Yeah.
The people who were proposing those motions, they know very well that they would not succeed. But that was not the purpose. The
Yeah.
purpose was such that come the time things collapse, the history shall absolve them that, okay, you guys were collaborators and you guys were trying to salvage the situation from where it was. Because history does not have blank pages.
You
So, yes, go
no,
ahead.
you are right. You are very right. All these actions will help EFF to have an answer when things collapse and people ask, guys, what did you do? And then they will say, we did one, two,
Yeah.
and three. But I also want to make a comment on what you were saying, that opposers of shutdown had their own objectives, and
Objectives. Yeah.
when those objectives were not met, then they think the shutdown then was a failure. One politician, prominent leader in the DA, admitted actually on Twitter. She was saying, actually, I'm disappointed that the shutdown
Mm.
was a peaceful protest. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
because it's funny that you are getting disappointed that people did, and then it goes to what you were saying, that they, at least he didn't call it a flop, but she didn't call it a flop, but it goes to what you were saying, that people had their own expectations, and when those expectations were not met, and then they thought this was not what it was about, when it was about what those who constructed it wanted it to
Mm.
be about. And now back to this point of saying we must do something when things are not going right. We must take
Something has to be done.
something has to be done, even if we know
Mm.
that odds are against us. It makes sense, right? But I think
Mm.
sometimes people are impatient, right? Because
Yeah.
as I mean, at times, you want immediate change, and
Mm.
I think I mean, people who think like that, people who like, I mean, there is something in someone who says, "Look, what I want is end to load shedding as a citizen,
Mm.
and if this, because people were asking to say, now what's gonna happen, right? Are we from the 21st of March? There will be no load shedding. Is that what EFF
Mm.
wants? So everyone was doing a shutdown, and I'm saying, when you are at the receiving end of, because people are tired. It's not like all these challenges that we are facing started during Ramaphosa, or these things have been
Mm.
happening since
It's decades long.
since long. And now, when
Mm.
you are telling people that, yeah, I mean, let us do it for the sake of, not for the sake of doing it, but let us do it so that history will absorb us. Sometimes that is not an enough motivation for people to take up or to support.
Most of
Sometimes
the
it's
time,
it's
yeah.
it's, it's not, because it was the same tune during Zuma time. Zuma must fall. I mean, we had a lot
Yeah.
of challenges during Zuma, and people were like, okay, we're gonna take to the streets and Zuma will fall. But what does it mean? I mean, when he falls,
In
what's going to
reality.
happen? Yeah, and it does sometimes disengage people.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people want
Okay.
immediate change. So I say some people look at it that way. People are like, you know what, we want change now. And if whatever activity you want us to join is not going to give us change tomorrow, then we are not doing it.
Yeah. No, actually, you are right what you're talking about. If I can just add, like in my personal space, as for example,
Yes.
you find that I'll give an advice, right? That okay, don't do 1, 2, 3 because I think this is what's gonna happen. But obviously I can't impose on what you need to do, right? And
Yes,
then
yes.
if you choose to defy my advice and do your own thing, and then if later it backfires, and then it turns out that what I've advised you about would have been the solution. You get me? So
Yes.
I won't have guilt in my mind because I'll say at least I told the guy. You see?
Yeah.
As
Yes.
to whether the guy follows the advice or not, actually I don't care. You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
My argument is that I tell you I tell you what would be the right way. If you don't do that route, that's that's for you. You see, so I can translate the same thing to the public sphere, like the issue of natural shutdown, right?
Yes.
That we attempt to bring to the fore the cries of the public, right? Through the natural shutdown EFF vehicle, right? Whether the Ramaphosa ultimately resign or whether electricity grid is salvaged, we don't have lockdown, load shedding anymore. That is a secondary matter. We have to try. Unfortunately, in real life, you have to do something
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a change to occur. Because if you don't, um, the state will be like that, right? Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
can't win lots without playing it.
For
But
sure.
playing it doesn't mean you win it. You get me?
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
but South Africa, I think we have a serious problem. Maybe it's a story for another day because maybe when we find time next time, I want us to explore the idea of democracy. If democracy is the system, because
Yes.
I have my own views, but maybe next time. But today,
That's
let's look at this one.
yeah.
Second
I
thing,
yes. Go on.
yeah,
Yes.
you can add.
Okay, I want you to lead us to the point that you want us to go
All right.
into, but I also want us to talk
Mm,
about the effectiveness of protest in general. I mean,
mm,
if we say is the idea of protest just about making statement that this is even when you know that you're not gonna win, but
yeah.
um,
All right.
is that
I,
all?
I,
Is
I
that
think
all about them?
I would like us to look at that just immediately after this next
All right,
issue that I want to
sure.
raise. Ne?
Yeah, yeah,
The reaction of the state,
yeah,
both leading up to the national shutdown and on the day of the shutdown. I don't know what was your assessment of how did the state react. But before you answer, I want to point this. Rumor has it. I will say rumors because it's not tested, but Malema said that some minister instructed some bus owners not to provide transport to ferry EFF supporters to the national shutdown march, whatever it is. It is rumors. As far as I know, I'll take it as rumors. I don't know
yeah,
if there's anything that has been put to the fore to ascertain if that was really the case. But being the rumor as it is, it's fine. But it can raise serious questions. So I want from your understanding, what is your take on how the state has been responding to the shutdown, both leading up to the shutdown itself and also on the day of the shutdown? What is your take?
yeah. I think the state and can I say the state and ANC because some of these
It's the
messages
same thing, actually.
were communicated
It
by
shouldn't, but
the
it's the same thing.
were communicated by the SG of the ANC. I think
Yeah.
their reaction was I have a problem with it. I think it was undemocratic. They were discouraging the protest in many ways. And if we say
Yeah.
that protest is ilungelo labantu, that is in the
Yeah.
enshrined in the constitution, you must not interfere with that,
Yeah.
and discourage it in any way. So many statements and comments and even actions that were were taken by the state were very discouraging to EFF or to organizers of a protest to take up. If you say I want to
Yeah.
exercise my right and you deploy soldiers on the street, that is intimidating. I,
It
I
may be. Um, it may be, right? But
yes.
what would be your counter argument to the person who would say, in July 2021, we were hands off. We allowed democratic rights to prevail. People could exercise their rights. What happened? The
Well,
destruction after
but
destruction,
but
and
but
billions and billions of rand were wiped out of the economy. So how would you counter argue a person who would put it that way? That look, in 2021, the state was not. I don't know if I don't know if it was because they're incompetent or they just wanted to see democracy in action. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, the destruction was so much that the state was seen as being weak. So what would be your take then on that counter argument against what you're just saying now in
yeah,
relation to the national chapter?
yeah, sure. I think one thing you've said earlier is that protest, they don't organize themselves. I mean, if they are not organized, they become chaotic. So that's what we know for the July unrest. It was unorganized, and that's why it was
We
what it
think
was.
so. We think
That,
it was unorganized. We will
that
never know. Maybe there was a hidden hand. I don't know. But continue.
that's yeah. And then that's what we know. People, no one is called an organizer; they are called instigators, and that's something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good
So
point.
it was unorganized. This one was organized by a legitimate organization, a political party, a responsible political party in many ways. And they have
Yeah,
done,
responsible.
yeah, they are responsible because
In
they are responsible because they have history of conducting shutdowns peacefully.
yeah.
Many times they've been doing it peacefully. Recently,
Okay.
they
I'll
yeah.
take your
So,
argument.
yeah. Now, why you want to intimidate your citizens who want to exercise their right, and you have a record of them doing this thing many a times, doing it peacefully without disrupting anyone. So I'm saying
Yeah,
it's undemocratic
yeah,
to kusabisa abantu ngamasosha when people want to exercise their
yeah.
right.
But still on that argument of uh, the organization organizing a march with the history of peaceful marches. Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
putting it in bracket. I'm not saying they're not peaceful, right?
yeah,
But what puzzles my mind now is that if the supposed organizer is deemed to be organizing peaceful marches, then why the hysteria? Why the West is expected of them? Surely that cannot come from the sky, will it?
it could come. It could also come. Um, um, Now, this is what organizers um, organizers is a good question that you're asking, and this is what the organizers of the shutdown were saying. They say, point us to a statement, because they've been releasing statements. Point us to a
And
statement.
speeches.
Point us to a video clip on record where we were threatening a looting, or point us to that. and then from that you say, okay, this is going to be a non-peaceful march, so we must be on guard as the state. Point us to that. I'm not saying that I've been reading all the statements, and I'm not saying that I've been listening to all press conferences, but organizers of this shutdown were very emphatic on the point that they are planning a peaceful shutdown. They were strong on that. So I don't find. So it could be coming from people. It could. So to answer you specifically, where this thing could have been coming from, it could be coming from their opposers to paint them. It could, to paint them negative.
Can I ask you something, right?
Yes.
In a scale of 1 to 5, in terms of the extreme nature of an event or activity leading up to overthrowing of government, with on your knowledge of previous events, even in other regimes, how would you classify the July unrest on a scale of 1 to 5? 5 being extreme, closer towards the tendency to overthrow government, like the July unrest.
Yeah, July unrest. I'll give it 3.8.
Okay, so if you give it 3.8, so it was almost a serious insurrection or attempt to overthrow government.
Yes,
okay, yes. If that is your assessment, then in one of the addresses, Julius Malema, the leader of EFF, said, if you've seen how July unrest was, you haven't seen anything. The nation would be worse than that. That was, I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not putting it verbatim, but I'm just summarizing what exactly he said. So then, what would you say? It could be just a threat, but if that was the case, then, and following what you just assessed in terms of where do you put the July unrest in the scale of measuring the insurrection, surely the state had every reason to do what they attempted to do, or they did, because they just can't allow a 2 times the situation of the July riots.
Yeah,
I call them riots actually. Well, they were riots, okay, but continue.
Yeah, I'm not gonna defend Malema on that statement, and my assessment of it is that it was reckless. But the July unrest had many features. One feature of it was looting. Yes, but another feature of it was a shutdown, in a sense that it was a shutdown, right?
So destruction of property, that was the main.
Yeah, that was the main. But I'm saying
looting and then shutdown.
Yeah, it could have been referring to that element of shutdown part of it. That there would be no movement as it was in that time. It could have been just referring to that there will be no movement of anything, not referring to a looting feature of the unrest. But I know I sound like I'm defending him on that statement. And I'll pause there and say it was a reckless statement, but that statement was made earlier in the preparations. After that, then people were raising this question of is it going to be peaceful or not, and then they kept on assuring people that no, we are going to be peaceful. And so
I agree with you. Besides that statement, I can't recall any other statement from a legitimate leader of the EFF advocating for violence, except the supposed what do you call it, supporters, which you can't even verify that were they supporters. Those guys who've been talking about the violence and stuff, we will never know if they are EFF members, because what will stop me from just getting an EFF t-shirt, wear it, then I go on national platform or on the internet and say whatever I want to say, and then you see the logo of EFF. Then you cannot be necessarily attached to EFF.
Yeah,
that is fair enough.
But can I add on the state reaction, because I was still on that. I was also listening to the press conference, and they were saying, the EFF, the organizers of the shutdown, they were saying out of 300 people that have been arrested, they've managed to attend to those cases, and over half of that, I think even like 200, like 300, there are 300 cases or so, and around 200 they have been cleared. Those people are free now, and now that tells you that the state reaction was bad. I mean, you already quantitatively tells you that wrongful arrests have been not just 2 or 3, but almost 200 unjustifiable arrests were made, and that's undemocratic. Yeah.
What I can say, for me, I say the preparation leading up to the national shutdown from the government side, I think they were justified, because they had to anticipate the worst, right? One, because they were already told that this would be worse than what happened in July unrest. And you and I both know what happened in the July unrest, right? So they were justified to prepare or over prepare, whatever the case is, but they prepared for the supposed worst case scenario of the July unrest in the form of the national shutdown. But what they did during the national shutdown, I think there were many unjustifiable things that they did. Perhaps maybe it reminds from the point that they were over-prepared to a point that actually end up doing things that are illegal. For example, how can a minister, I don't know if it's true, but if it's just the case, a minister instructing the bus owners not to provide bus to the support to the AFF to ferry their supporters, that's unjustified. Actually, that's what I would call dictatorship, where you dictate how things should be, and
even worse, they are dictating business, because those buses are not state-owned. It's a private company that somehow is supported by government.
So without sounding justifying government action, you might find that that was as a result of over preparing. When you over prepare something, like I used to, when you go to an exam hall, right, for exam paper, you prepare like too much. When you get there, the questions are so easy. But now, because you have prepared a lot, you end up wanting to put things that are not there just because, no, man, I want to put this thing there because I have prepared so much.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get away in the exam because I can get the pass mark, but although I'll provide even irrelevant information because I just over prepared. But we're dealing with people's lives there. You arrest the person without any justifiable cause. That's not okay.
It to me, it sounds like it could be an over preparedness, but also it was an attack to a shutdown, because to me the question is, where was this over preparedness in Marikana? Where was this over preparedness in July unrest? Where was it? Yeah, so I think it was it was for this particular activity. It was just for this particular activity. For whatever reason they can they have why they wanted this not to succeed, or why they have their reasons, but I think it was particularly for this. I mean, I believe that in terms of numbers, quantitatively, the Zuma must fall things had higher turn up than higher turn up than this. but there were no soldiers at that time. Now, this
Yeah.
time when and because they could have expected that the turnout won't be high on the fact that this was a Monday before the a public holiday,
Probably,
and
yeah.
a number of us were on vele besingayi emsebenzini ngomhla 20, schools were closed, so there was so much, not so much, but there was something for the state to say, look, this is just not going to be as crazy as we 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 we,
Mm.
we want it to be, because I think the states wanted this thing to be crazy, wanted it to be crazy and become an unrest of some sort, and that's why when it
I
didn't
think,
have that,
you know
they
what?
called it off.
I think it's so sorry to interject. I think they thought it was gonna be crazy because Monday was a day before a public holiday. So they thought that people would be at home most of the time, would have taken leave, so that
Yeah.
then those people might then go to the streets.
Okay. Yeah. That could be.
That
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
theory
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
the perception that perhaps, but like even that aspect, it depends on who speak on it. You know, government, they say, if they want to say, or NC people, if they want to say the march was not successful, they said no, Monday was a public holiday anyway.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
the people were at home. But now, if you look at it on the other hand, that if people are at home, then they can have time on
They,
their hand to go and join the
yes.
march. Then,
Yeah.
but now, why did you prepare so much if people will be at home anyway? So, but now, if it turns out the way you want, I mean, it's not turned out the way you thought it's going to be violent, then you say, now, no, man, it was not effective. It was a public holiday anyway. You know, I mean, a day before the public holiday, you know, our leaders, but it's fine. I don't want to talk about that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
we talk about the issue of protest in general, man, I
Yeah.
want to understand from your side, what is your take on how, or what was the posture of the opposition, the DA specifically, either leading up to the march or on the day of the march itself? What is your take? Before you answer, I just want to share this because I don't understand it. DA marched earlier for the same issue to the headquarters of the ruling party, right? And there was no interdict from anyone, even not even from the ANC. No, I don't remember even an interdict or attempt to go to court to interdict DA to go to the house and deliver whatever they wanted to deliver on the same issue, right? But when it was the EFF march, the national, right, they went to court. And these people, they are marching against the same thing, besides them like asking Ramaphosa to resign as part of their demand. But the other one, load shedding, it was a very thing that DA was marching to another organization, another political party, but there was no attempt to go to court and stuff like that. So what does it say about DA, or what is your take in general in terms of the DA's posture in this whole thing?
Yeah. It's poor politicking, right? They
I
want
don't
to
think it's poor. I think it's more than that, but continue.
they want to be seen as the leaders of change. They want to own the
Mm.
space. They are the only ones who should raise issues, and they want to suppress other oppositions to do the same.
Mm.
Um,
I agree with you.
and now, well, they believed. I even said that their leader admitted that he is disappointed that
Mm.
it was peaceful. They wanted it to be destructive. They wanted it to be to be a July
Yeah.
unrest 2.0. Well,
Mm.
I mean, maybe that could justify why they wanted to block it, because they were under,
Mm.
they anticipated it to be a bad thing. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that what you would do, right? If you think something is gonna turn out ugly, you would
Mm.
want to try to prevent it.
Yeah.
But it's hypocrisy, to in fact, they should have joined the shutdown, because the organizers of the shutdown, where they opened their hands to not only to other opposition parties, but
they were there, yeah,
to everyone who whether you are not into politics or you are into politics, because these things that they were raising, they affect all of us. I'm not sure about the organization of the DA thing, but I think it was not open to everyone to come and support it. So now it's hypocrisy. You want to be seen as leading the change, and when others are doing the same thing, even inviting you to support it, you block them.
Yeah, for me, I think Upkogi is an understatement, right? I think it's more than that.
Yeah.
My understanding of how the DA behave throughout the planning and on the day of the shutdown, right?
Yes.
They think, right? I'll say they think that democracy is only democracy on their terms. You get me?
Yeah.
They want to define what democracy is. One thing, if it's done by them, it's a democratic right. They can march. But if it's done by somebody else and they perceive violence, whatever the case, those things are all unjustified because they are pure perception. Then it's not democracy.
No, it's not.
That is the hypocrisy of the highest order I've ever had since I was alive. But before I would like to understand the psyche of the people, right? The leaders. Then they went to court, right? And then the court ruled that the march shall continue. There were many cases, so I'll just combine all of them because others were in Cape Town. But overall, the court said the march shall continue, and then the AFF must conduct the march peacefully. And guess what? The leaders, they come back and say, we won the case. The shutdown, the court said shutdown must not be violent and stuff like that. But now, how is that a win? Because one thing that what they wanted was to stop the national shutdown. Right?
Exactly.
Whether the case or the dog case, one aspect was because that's the only thing I can think of.
Yes.
I don't think they went to court for a court to declare that the march, the EFF must march peaceful and don't, because that's what the law says anyway.
Yes.
You don't need a court order to tell you that you should not kill another person. Right? It's unlawful on its own. You don't need a court to tell you that. But because they want to camouflage what their failure, and they want to turn it into
it was very.
They said, "Oh, the court, we won in court." What nonsense is that?
It
We're not kids.
No, man. It's poor. It's poor politicking. I mean, like
I don't know. I think it's beyond poor. I
beyond
think DA will go down in history as an arrogant party and as a party that is anti-South Africa and anti-native South Africans. I'm talking about black people. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else say that if I say anti-native, we're also not native. We blacks are not native. I don't want to go there, but these guys, they're like, they think they have their own truth. But anyway, your other aspect you wanted us to talk about was the effectiveness of protest in general. We can go ahead. What is your take on the effectiveness of strikes or protests, whatever you give the name of those activities?
I mean, it's very interesting because when you talk about history of South Africa, we are coming from the 21st of March. It comes from a protest. You think about June 16 and all those events, 9 August, the Women's Day. All those events are celebrated, and when we listen to speeches that get to be conducted on those days, leaders are telling us that it is because of such events that we have freedom. So and that tells you that okay, these things are effective.
Yeah.
I think, well, there are also other things like Arab Spring, where like recent history, where things really bend up and we saw change. Maybe we should, because when you think about history, sometimes we don't understand the gap in between 1961, right, Sharpeville, and then there was 9 August happened even before that, right? I think in 1950s, and then there was 1976. So there was gap in between. So what we should learn is that, I'm not sure if this is what we should take, that they are effective, but they don't bring an immediate a solution, because these things happened decades before freedom, but they get credited for the freedom that we got. So there was 1976, and then there is 1994, but all these things are put together to what build up to democracy. But to what happened after democracy, at least something that we have esiyibonile nathi esesikhona. I can't say that I've seen successful. They've been how can I put it? You can think about Marikana, for example, which is a West event. I mean, it was, people did what was their right, and in a democratic situation, they were killed. But you also have examples of Fees Must Fall, which did some magic. You can also talk about Zuma Must Fall. I'm not sure if we can credit those Zuma Must Fall shutdowns or marches, whatever you call it, or Zuma fell because he lost in Nazareth, and then a new leadership took over, and then change happened. I'm really I don't have a definitive understanding of this event.
Here is my take, right?
Yeah.
Protests in South Africa, they are not effective.
Mm-hmm.
They are not a vehicle to effect change. I'll tell you why. In the SA Constitution, right, and any legislation that has ever been passed, not even common law, right, there is no provision which says that if the population protest or rise against whatever the policy of government, then the leader must resign, right? I don't think there's any constitution in the world of any country with such a provision. I don't know, right? But I'll just talk about South Africa. Then the leader, right? Then following on that argument I'm putting there, in terms of there's no legal prescript which prescribe that, right? Then if a leader fall on his or her sword, it is purely his or her conscience, right? It says people are rising up, they are not happy. I think I can't take it anymore. I'm resigning. There's no law which says that's what you need to do. Now it points me to this argument that South African leaders, they don't have conscience. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yes.
The scandals that happen, just think, for example, of Boris Johnson, he had to resign. Ne? You know what issue was? Because he held a party which violated the rules of the COVID-19 at that time.
Yeah,
Ne?
yeah, yes.
How many worst case scenarios of South Africa where there was a serious breach of the law, but leader doesn't resign?
Yeah,
I can't even count. There are many.
there are many.
So
Yes.
which means that now it leads to me to this point that the protests, their effectiveness depends on the conscience of the leader. The very conscience that those leaders don't have. You get me? So when it happened that the people marched for free education, and then indeed there was free higher education thereafter, it's just a coincidence. The change did not occur because the leader felt the pressure,
Yeah,
or it fell on his conscience that no, man, these guys are okay, are right what they're talking about. Let us do it exactly what they're saying. No, you know what they do, ne? If they see, okay, I can score political points there, let me do it.
yeah,
So they're not doing it because we are marching. No, I don't believe that. Actually, in Africa as a whole, right? I think we're a different breed from maybe because we are not experienced enough in democracy. Ne? In Africa, instead, when people protest, ne, they end up turning a democrat into a dictator. Actually, it's just the opposite. Even
yeah,
the person who thought was a moderate dictator, and
yeah,
when protests kick in, the person actually becomes a real dictator.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
actually the opposite.
yeah, yeah,
So, unlike in the case of Egypt and how do you call it, Tunisia, right? Then
yes, yes,
that was a different scenario, right? But another difference about them, I think they have some element of the European tradition in how they do things.
mm,
Because
yeah,
in Europe, protests they do matter most of the time, not all of the time. Just imagine, uh, France is not a big country in terms of land size. I'm not sure about the population, but I think they have a lesser population than us. I'm just thinking, right?
yeah, yeah.
The protest against the Macron pension reform. You know how much it we've lost Mashimane. Okay,
Uh,
you are back.
I'm here. Yes. Yeah.
I wonder what happened. Yeah.
On my
But
side, you got
yeah,
disconnected. Yeah, but yeah, we're
it
back
could
now.
be load shedding. It could be
Yeah,
load
yeah,
shedding because I don't know when it's scheduled. You know, this side we know that from 12 to 2 you have you don't have electricity. If it happened to you have electricity for 30 minutes to get surprised, man. You know, we're quite used to it. But anyway,
yeah. Yes, yes,
in France,
yes.
the match about 1 million people participating in it.
Wow. Yeah.
I can bet with my life. There can never be 1 million people in South Africa marching on any topic. Doesn't matter what the topic is. They will never.
I
Okay.
mean, lo- lo-
Go ahead.
yeah, you are right. I mean, load shedding affects 58 million of us there, if that we are a 58 million population. But when a shutdown about it gets to be organized, not less than a million of us participate, and some of us don't participate, not because load shedding does not affect us, but because the organizer, because we have a beef with the organizer, or but our non-participation is not because we have a different understanding of the problem. We all believe that the problem is a problem, but for whatever reason, yeah, and many different reasons, people don't participate. But I hear you on what you on your understanding on how a protest, you know, their effectiveness, and it's interesting
Yeah.
conversation, and I think it's something that yeah needs to be you know
We need to interrogate it further.
yeah need to be integrated thought.
Yeah.
I saw another prominent leader was really watering down these ideas. Musi Maimane had to say something about shutdowns, and
Is Musman a leader?
yeah, he's a
Okay.
leader of Bosa, and a former
You know this thing of leadership. I can form a
yeah.
party tomorrow. Then I'm a leader.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I I think I give him
Wanna
leadership
be leader.
qualities based on his experience, not not on Bossa. He did a wonderful job on 2021 election. One person was saying, not a politician, someone on Facebook was saying, people are bashing, are watering down this shutdown thing, and are calling it a failure when they cannot even organize a braai of 100 of 10 people, you know, a braai.
So if you can't organize, then you can't criticize. That's nonsense. But anyway, I think now we need to wrap up. Man. In 2
Yeah,
minutes,
sure.
where to from here?
Well, I think
Post
yeah, I think so far South Africa has a good reputation on how we conduct our elections, right? I mean, observers of SA elections since 1994 have been always giving us um, a green card, yeah, to say no, things are these elections were the integrity of election is always, you know, maintained. Now, in less than a year, or maybe what we know for sure is that before August next year, we will have elections. And a build up to that has started. I mean, this shutdown has done some groundwork in, you know, conscientizing our mind to say these are the problems. So, where to from here? Of course, there are many other things that can still be done, or that needs to be done to conscientize us. But the best tool that we have on our hands is to vote for change, you know, So I think that's where we are. And as you were saying that protest, there is no law that says if number of people protest, then this must happen. But there is a law that says if 51% of voters vote this way, this must happen. So from here, I think that's where to. But we also need to educate people on what it means to vote. Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, we've reached the end of the session. Until next time.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Siyabonga. Sharp.